If you've ever been judged in public by your clothes, your skin, your job, or the way you speak, then you already know this kind of humiliation doesn't just sting, it brands you. And the worst part? It usually happens in front of people who could stop it, but don't. That's exactly what happened on a blazing Miami afternoon outside the glass and marble entrance of Seabreeze Residences, one of those waterfront condo towers where the lobby smells like expensive candles and the doorman looks like he belongs on a magazine cover. A woman in a simple red dress stood near the curb, holding an old brown purse with both hands like it was the only thing keeping her steady. Her heels were modest, her makeup was minimal, her posture was calm, but her eyes kept flicking to the building like she was fighting a memory. Her name was Elena Rivera. She didn't look homeless. She didn't look dangerous. She didn't look like a criminal. She just didn't look wealthy. And in places like Seabreeze Residences, that can be enough. 30 feet away, a black Mercedes sedan sat at the valet stand, freshly washed, shining so hard it looked wet. A set of golf clubs were visible through the tinted window. The license plate had a custom frame that said, Hawthorne Family. Then a man's voice cut through the heat like a whip. "Get away from that car." Heads turned. A few people stopped walking. A couple in athletic clothes paused mid-conversation, pretending to check their phones but clearly watching. A delivery guy slowed his cart just to see what was happening. The man stepping forward had the kind of confidence money buys. Daniel Hawthorne. He was in his late 40s, tall, perfectly groomed, wearing a bright blue blazer that looked tailored for him, and him alone. His watch caught the sun. His shoes didn't have a speck of dust. Daniel wasn't just rich. He was powerful. He was the managing partner of Hawthorne Property Group, the company that handled luxury buildings, HOA boards, and property investments all over South Florida. People in Miami knew his name, not because he was famous, but because he had a way of making sure you knew who ran things. And at Seabreeze Residences, Daniel acted like he owned every tile in the lobby. His jaw tightened as he approached Elena. "I said move," he repeated louder. "That's not your car." Elena blinked, confused. She wasn't leaning on the car. She wasn't touching it. She was simply standing near the valet curb, where people waited for rides all the time. She swallowed. "Sir," she said softly, "I'm just waiting for..." "For what?" Daniel scoffed. He pointed at her like she was being accused in court. "For someone to take your picture next to my car? For your little social media moment?" Elena's lips parted, but no words came out. Daniel took her silence as proof. "That's a $70,000 vehicle," he snapped. "Do you even understand what that costs? You don't belong here. This is a private residence." A murmur rippled through the small gathering crowd. Elena felt the old heat rise in her cheeks, the same heat she remembered from years ago. From a time when she wore a cleaning uniform and people spoke to her like she couldn't understand English. She steadied her purse tighter. "Sir," she tried again, "I'm not doing anything wrong." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "You're doing everything wrong," he said. "Standing here like you own the place. People like you come around luxury buildings and next thing you know, security is dealing with incidents. I won't have it." "People like you," Elena repeated quietly. Daniel didn't catch the pain behind her tone, or maybe he did, and didn't care. "Let me make this very simple," he said, stepping closer, voice dripping with contempt. "Show me your resident key card, or your name on the guest list. If you can't, you leave. Now." Elena's throat tightened. She could feel the eyes on her, the way strangers watched public humiliation like it was a show. No one stepped in. A young guy in a white polo and khakis, one of Daniel's assistants, hovered behind him like a nervous shadow. The valet driver, already uncomfortable, pretended to be busy with another car. Elena's hands trembled, but her voice stayed calm. "I don't have a key card," she admitted. "Not yet." Daniel laughed out loud. "Not yet," he mocked. "Listen to that. Like this is something you grow into. Like you just wake up one day and suddenly you belong in Seabreeze." Elena looked down at her purse, and for a second her eyes went distant. Because she had belonged here once. Not as a resident, As someone who scrubbed this building's floors when it was still new, when the marble didn't have scuffs and the residents still pretended to smile, she hadn't come back to start a fight. She had come because her daughter insisted. A family dinner, her daughter said. A new chapter, her daughter said. Elena took a careful breath. When I was younger, she said, mostly to herself, I cleaned buildings like this. Sometimes this one. Daniel's expression twisted as if her words offended him. Oh, great, he said, rolling his eyes. A sob story. That's what this is. Elena lifted her gaze. It's not a sob story, she said. It's my life. Daniel leaned in. And your life, he said coldly, is not my problem. Get away from my property. Elena's mouth opened. She wanted to say, this isn't your property. But the truth was, at that moment, she wasn't sure. Not because she didn't know where she was, because she didn't know what her daughter had done. Her daughter had been secretive, excited, nervous. And Elena had stopped asking questions years ago when she learned the world didn't reward poor women for curiosity. Daniel straightened his blazer like he'd won. Security, he called, loud enough for the lobby doors to hear. That's when the building's gate arm lifted and a black SUV rolled into the valet lane. Not a common SUV. A brand new Cadillac Escalade, black on black, with a sheen like a mirror. It moved slowly, controlled, like it had every right to take up space. The crowd instinctively stepped back, because people always step back for expensive cars. The Escalade stopped directly behind the Mercedes. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out. Early 30s, clean haircut, broad shoulders. He wore a charcoal suit without a single wrinkle and a crisp white shirt open at the collar. No flashy jewelry, no loud colors, just quiet authority. He looked at the scene, then at Elena. Then his jaw tightened, and the air changed, because his face wasn't confused. It was furious. Mrs. Rivera? The man asked, voice controlled. Elena turned. Yes, she said cautiously. Daniel's head snapped toward the newcomer. The man walked closer, eyes locked on Elena first, not Daniel. I'm sorry, he said, gentle now. I'm late. The meeting ran long. Elena's shoulders loosened a fraction. You're James? She said. The man nodded. James Carter. The name meant nothing to the crowd. But Daniel Hawthorne flinched, because Daniel knew exactly who James Carter was. James wasn't just some guy with a nice car. He was a venture capitalist who had quietly been buying property shares all over Miami, the kind of investor who didn't need to talk big because the numbers spoke for him. Daniel's lips parted. James? Daniel said, forcing a smile. Hey, I didn't realize you were coming here today. James didn't smile back. Instead, he took one more step toward Elena, then placed himself slightly between her and Daniel. A protective move, a clear message. Daniel's face tightened. Everything okay? James asked Elena. Elena's voice stayed polite. This gentleman thinks I shouldn't be here, she said. James turned his head slowly toward Daniel, and the silence that followed felt heavier than the humidity. Daniel tried to laugh it off. Misunderstanding, Daniel said quickly. You know how it is. We get a lot of random people wandering in, taking pictures, bothering residents. I'm just protecting the building. James's eyes didn't blink. Protecting the building, he repeated. Then he looked at Elena again. Elena, he said softly. My wife is upstairs. She told me you were coming. The word wife landed like a punch. The crowd leaned in. Daniel's confident posture faltered. Your wife? Daniel repeated. James nodded, calm. Naomi Carter, he said. Dr. Naomi Carter. Elena's eyes softened at the mention of her daughter. Daniel's throat bobbed. Because Daniel had heard of Dr. Naomi Carter, cardiac surgeon, rising star at Jackson Memorial, the woman who had performed a life-saving procedure on a city commissioner last month. Daniel forced a grin. Oh, he said, voice strained. Naomi, right, she's impressive. James finally let a small, humorless smile show. Yes, he said. She is. Then his expression hardened again. And this woman, James continued, nodding toward Elena, is her mother. Elena's fingers tightened on her purse. Daniel's eyes flicked over Elena's dress like he was seeing it for the first time. But, Daniel said, confused, searching for a way out, she said she doesn't have a key card. James's voice stayed even. She doesn't, he said, because the unit was just transferred this morning. Daniel blinked. Transferred? James nodded. Penthouse 1502, he said. The deed is now in my wife's name, and we're moving Elena in with us. A stunned whisper rolled through the crowd. Penthouse. The last floor. The unit everyone in the building gossiped about because it had floor-to-ceiling windows facing the water, because it cost more than most houses, because whoever lived there was automatically someone important. Daniel's face drained of color. That's impossible, he said, voice cracking slightly. That unit isn't... It is, James interrupted, sharp now. And you know it is. Your company handled the paperwork. Daniel swallowed. He tried to recover. Well, look, Daniel said, raising his hands, trying to appear reasonable. No one told me she was connected to you. If I'd known... James's eyes narrowed. If you'd known, he repeated, you would have treated her like a human being? Daniel froze. Elena looked down, and her voice came out quieter than she intended. That's the part that hurts, she said. I didn't come here to be important. I came here to eat dinner with my daughter. James turned to her. You are important, he said firmly. Not because of a penthouse, not because of a deed, because of what you did for Naomi. Elena blinked hard. Daniel tried one last angle. Elena, he said, forcing softness into his tone. I'm sorry if I offended you, truly. Sometimes you have to understand. We have standards. James snapped his head toward Daniel. Standards? He repeated. Then James took a breath and spoke loudly enough that everyone could hear, including the valet and the doorman behind the glass. Let me be clear, James said. Elena Rivera worked as a cleaner in buildings like this for years. She raised Naomi alone when Naomi's father disappeared. She took double shifts. She skipped meals so Naomi could buy textbooks. He stepped closer to Daniel. And today, James continued, you decided that because she's standing outside in a red dress with an old purse, she must be a threat. Daniel's lips trembled. The crowd had stopped pretending to check their phones. Now they stared openly. Because once a powerful person begins to fall, people suddenly remember how to look. Daniel cleared his throat. I was only trying to... James lifted a hand. No, he said. You were trying to control who belongs. Daniel's eyes darted around. He wanted someone to defend him, but no one did. A man in gym clothes shook his head. A woman with a small dog frowned. Even the doorman's face looked tight with disapproval. Elena finally lifted her chin. I used to clean stairwells in this building, she said, voice steady now. I remember which residents said good morning, and I remember which ones walked past me like I was furniture. Her eyes met Daniel's. And I remember men like you, she said. Men who think money makes them the owner of other people's dignity. Daniel's face reddened. He opened his mouth, but nothing came. Because there was nothing he could say that wouldn't sound like what it was. Excuses. At that moment, the lobby doors swung open. A woman hurried out, mid-30s, white suit, hospital badge still clipped to her pocket, dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. She looked exhausted, like someone who had been awake for too long, but her eyes were sharp. Dr. Naomi Carter. She stopped the second she saw her mother. Then she saw Daniel. Then she saw the crowd. Her expression hardened. Mom! Naomi called, voice urgent. Elena turned, and something in her face softened. I'm okay, Elena said quickly, as if she didn't want to burden her daughter. Naomi walked straight to Elena and took her hands. Who did this? Naomi asked, looking her mother up and down like she was checking for injuries. Elena hesitated. Naomi didn't wait. Her eyes locked onto Daniel. Daniel lifted his chin, trying to regain authority. Dr. Carter, he said, too formal, too stiff. This is being blown out of proportion. Your mother was... Naomi cut him off. My mother was what? She asked, dangerously calm. Daniel's mouth opened, then closed. Naomi's gaze flicked to the Mercedes. Is that your car? She asked. Daniel nodded. Yes, he said. It's mine. Naomi took a slow breath. Then it's a good thing my mother didn't touch it, she said. Daniel forced a laugh. She was standing right next to it, he insisted. Naomi stepped forward. And you stood right next to her, Naomi said. Did her presence damage you? The crowd went silent. Daniel's eyes widened. Naomi's voice sharpened. You embarrassed her, Naomi said, pointing a finger now, mirroring the very gesture Daniel had used. You shamed her in public because you thought nobody important would show up to protect her. Daniel's throat tightened. Naomi continued. My entire life, she said. My mother has been treated like she was invisible. Do you know what she did while people like you were bragging about vacation homes? She scrubbed toilets. She cleaned vomit off stairwells. She mopped floors at 5 a.m. so I could study. Naomi's eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. She looked like a woman holding back a storm. And today, Naomi said, voice trembling with controlled rage, you decided she wasn't worthy of standing near a car. Daniel tried to speak. I didn't know, Naomi snapped. That's the problem, she said. You didn't need to know. You should have been decent anyway. James stood beside Naomi now, steady like a pillar. Daniel looked at them both. This man and woman united, powerful in completely different ways. Then he looked at Elena, and he realized something that made his hand shake. He wasn't losing an argument. He was losing control. Because James Carter wasn't just a resident. James was an investor, and Naomi wasn't just a doctor. Naomi had connections. And Elena? Elena was the proof of who Daniel really was when he thought no one important was watching. Daniel's voice came out smaller. I'm sorry, he said, almost whispering. Mrs. Rivera, I apologize. Elena studied him. She didn't look triumphant. She looked tired. I don't need you to beg, Elena said quietly. I needed you to stop before it reached this point. Naomi turned toward her mother. Mom, she said softly, let's go upstairs. Elena hesitated. For a second, she looked at the entrance. The same entrance she once walked through in a uniform, carrying supplies, keeping her eyes down so she wouldn't upset residents. Naomi squeezed her hands. This time, Naomi whispered, you walk in with your head up. Elena inhaled, then she lifted her chin, and she walked. The crowd parted like a curtain. No one laughed, no one whispered, because the scene had shifted. It wasn't entertainment anymore, it was a lesson. As Elena passed Daniel, she didn't glare at him. She didn't insult him. She didn't even smile. She simply walked by, as if he had become what he always made other people feel like. Small. Behind her, Naomi stopped and turned back. She looked at Daniel with the calmness of someone who had spent her life in operating rooms where every second mattered. Respect doesn't begin with apologies after you realize someone has power, Naomi said, voice clear. It begins with how you treat people when you believe they have none. Daniel's eyes dropped. The words hit him harder than yelling ever could. James opened the lobby door for Elena and Naomi. And as they disappeared inside, Daniel Hawthorne stood next to his shining Mercedes, surrounded by the same people he had tried to impress. But now, those people weren't impressed. They were disgusted. Because money can buy a car, money can buy a suit, money can buy influence, but it can't buy back the moment everyone sees who you really are. And that afternoon, outside Seabreeze Residences, Daniel Hawthorne didn't just lose face. He lost something worse. The illusion that he was better. So here's the real question. If you were standing in that crowd, would you have spoken up when Elena was being humiliated? Would you have stepped in, even if the powerful person was the one doing the attacking? Or would you have done what most people do, look down at your phone and pretend you didn't see? Because the world doesn't change when villains are exposed. It changes when bystanders stop being silent. If this story moved you, make sure you like the video, subscribe, and comment one thing. What would you have done in that moment? Respect is the minimum. Do you agree?